My wife cheated on me with my best friend, took his money, and let me believe his child was mine. But the real betrayal? That wasn't even the first time she'd done it. I never thought my life would turn into something straight out of a bad soap opera. If you had told me 2 years ago that my wife would betray me in the worst way possible, I would have laughed in your face. Because that's not Jessica. That's not us. At least that's what I used to think. Let me back up. My name's Ethan Parker. And for most of my life, I believed in working hard, loving the people closest to you, and trusting those who earned it. That's just how I was raised. I'm not perfect, but I've always tried to do right by people, especially my wife. I met Jessica 3 years ago at a bar in Nashville. One of those dimly lit places where the whiskey was overpriced, and the live music was just good enough to keep you from leaving. She walked in like she owned the place. Wavy blonde hair, bright blue eyes, a laugh that turned heads. She was chaotic, but in the best way. Or at least that's what I told myself back then. We dated for a year before I proposed. Small wedding, close friends, nothing extravagant. I was making good money as a contractor. She was in marketing, some remote job that let her work whenever she felt like it. First, things were great. The usual honeymoon phase, spontaneous road trips, late-night talks, plans for the future. And then we met Ryan and Emily Carter. Ryan and I go way back. High school friends. The dependable type. We lost touch after graduation, but when Jessica and I ran into him at a wedding, it was like no time had passed. We started doing everything together, couples trips, game nights, backyard barbecues. Emily, Ryan's wife, was sweet, quiet, but with a sharp sense of humor once you got her to open up. She and Jessica hit it off instantly, which at the time I thought was a good thing. For the first year of my marriage, I was happy. Genuinely happy, but looking back now, I realized that happiness was built on lies. The warning signs? I ignored them. Jessica's phone always face down. The sudden interest in going to the gym, even though she hated working out. Late nights where she claimed she was catching up on work, but was giggling at her phone like a teenager. I didn't question it, because that's what trust is, right? Not assuming the worst. If only I had known. If only I had looked closer. Because while I was busy loving her, while I was busy building a life for us, she was busy burning it all down. And the worst part? The people who helped her do it were the ones I trusted the most. I still remember the exact moment Jessica told me she was pregnant. It was a Saturday morning. I was dead asleep when she jumped on top of me, shaking my shoulders like an excited kid on Christmas. She had this huge grin on her face. Eyes wide, hands gripping a little plastic test. "Ethan," she practically shouted, "we're having a baby." For a second, I swear, my heart just stopped. In the best way. I pulled her into me, laughing, overwhelmed, maybe a little terrified, but mostly happy. I had always wanted to be a dad. Even as a kid, I used to imagine it, having a son or daughter who would look up to me, trust me, need me to protect them. And now, that dream was happening. I kissed her, held her, told her how much I loved her. I had no idea she was lying straight to my face. That night, we called Ryan and Emily to tell them the news. They came over, Ryan bringing a bottle of champagne for Jessica, a few beers for me. We sat out on the porch, laughing, celebrating. And I remember Ryan looking me right in the eye, grinning, raising his bottle, and saying, "You're gonna be the best dad, man. This kid is lucky to have you." I had never been so sure of anything in my life. And you know what's really messed up? Ryan must have known, right then, right there, that there was a chance that baby was his. He was sitting in my house, drinking my beer, congratulating me on raising his child. And I had no idea. I was too busy busting my ass, doing everything I could to provide for my growing family. I picked up extra jobs, worked weekends, saved every penny. And Jessica? She started acting different, distant one moment, weirdly affectionate the next. I told myself it was just pregnancy hormones. I didn't think too hard about the way she'd stare at her phone, or how she'd disappear for hours with no real explanation. I let it go, because she would curl up next to me on the couch, rest her head against my chest, and whisper, "You're gonna be such a good dad." And God, I believed her. I wish I hadn't, because that baby wasn't mine. Looking back, I don't know why I didn't question it sooner. Maybe it was because I wanted to believe we were just a normal couple, expecting our first child. Maybe it was because Jessica was good at lying, good at covering her tracks. Or maybe I just didn't want to see the truth. It started with small things. One night, I came home late from a job, covered in drywall dust, exhausted, just wanting a hot shower and a cold beer. Jessica was on the couch, scrolling through her phone. But the second I walked in, she flipped it over and sat up straight. "Hey babe," she said, a little too cheerfully. I glanced at her phone. I didn't say anything at first, but my gut twisted. Something about the way she did it, so automatic, so practiced, made me uneasy. But I let it go. Then there was the money. Jessica wasn't the best at managing finances, so I handled most of our bills. One day, I was looking for a receipt in her purse when I found something I wasn't supposed to. A thick envelope, full of cash. I stared at it for a solid minute, my brain trying to make sense of it. We weren't struggling, but we weren't the kind of people who had thousands of dollars just lying around. I took it out and walked into the kitchen, holding it up. "What's this?" I asked. Jessica looked up from her laptop. And for just a second, just 1 second, I saw it. Panic flashed across her face, quick and sharp. But then, just as fast, she buried it. She laughed, waving a hand. "Oh, that's just emergency money. My parents sent it." I frowned. "Your parents? When?" "I don't know, a while ago." She shrugged, already turning back to her screen. "They just wanted us to have a safety net. You know how they are." Something didn't feel right. Jessica's parents were comfortable, sure, but they had never sent wads of cash before. Still, what was I supposed to say? That I didn't believe my own wife? So I nodded, put the envelope back, and lied to myself. That was my mistake. Because that money, it wasn't from her parents. It was hush money. The price of a secret too big to stay buried forever. And I was about to start digging. A few weeks after I found the money, we had game night at Ryan and Emily's place. It was something we did every few weekends: pizza, drinks, board games. Just an easy way to unwind. But that night was different. Maybe it was because my gut was already telling me something was off. Maybe it was because I had started noticing little things. Jessica texting more than usual, Ryan acting a little too casual when she was around. Or maybe it was because, deep down, I already knew. We sat around the dining table playing some trivia game. Ryan was across from me, Emily next to him, Jessica beside me. At first, everything seemed normal. Laughing, drinking, the usual. And then, I noticed something. Every time Jessica answered a question, Ryan would grin like an idiot. Not a normal, "Ha, good job" kind of grin. It was the kind of grin you give someone when you have an inside joke. The kind of grin that shouldn't exist between my wife and my best friend. At first, I told myself I was overthinking it. But then, I saw it. Jessica's foot, nudging Ryan's, under the table. I froze. It wasn't an accident. It was quick, but I saw it. And I saw Ryan shift just slightly in response. Like this wasn't the first time. Like it was habit. I glanced at Emily. She was staring at her drink, swirling the glass, not smiling. She had noticed it too. The rest of the night was a blur. I played along, laughed when I was supposed to, acted normal, but my mind was racing. By the time we got home, I was done ignoring it. Jessica kicked off her shoes and flopped onto the couch, scrolling through her phone. I sat across from her, folded my arms. "You and Ryan seem close." She barely looked up. "Huh." I said, "You and Ryan seem close." I kept my voice calm, controlled. She blinked at me. "I mean, yeah, we're friends, Ethan. We've all been friends for years." No hesitation, no guilt, no nervousness. She was too good at this. I leaned forward. "Did you tell me everything about that money?" Jessica's eyes narrowed. Just for a second. "I already told you. It's from my parents." I nodded. Slowly. I didn't believe her. Not anymore. Something was going on. And for the first time in our marriage, I felt like my wife wasn't my wife anymore. She was a stranger, and I was about to find out just how much she had been hiding. Couldn't let it go. Not this time. That night, after Jessica went to bed, I sat in the dark, staring at the ceiling, thinking, the money, the foot under the table, the way Ryan looked at her. I wasn't crazy, and I was done being the fool in my own marriage. The next morning, while Jessica was in the shower, I stepped outside and called her parents. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. Maybe I just wanted confirmation that she had told the truth. Maybe I just wanted anything at all, to prove that my gut feeling was wrong. Her dad, Tom, answered on the third ring. Ethan, hey, everything all right? I hesitated. Then, deciding to play it casual, I said, Yeah. Just wanted to say thanks again for the money. Silence. Then, a confused chuckle. What money? My stomach dropped. I forced a laugh. Jessica said you sent us emergency money a while back. More silence. Then Tom's voice turned serious. Cold. Ethan, we never sent you guys money. If she told you that, she's lying. My mind raced. So where the hell did the money come from? I swallowed, trying to keep my voice steady. All right. Well, since I have you on the phone, can I ask you something? About Jessica. Of course, Tom said. What's up? I hesitated. Then I figured, screw it. Did Jessica ever date Ryan before she met me? Silence. A long silence. Then another voice. Jessica's mom. Apparently, Tom had put me on speakerphone. Oh, honey. Her mom sighed, like she was reminiscing about some long-forgotten gossip. She didn't tell you? My grip tightened on the phone. Tell me what? They dated for a couple of years in college, she said. On and off. He was her first serious boyfriend. My knuckles went white. What happened? I asked. Tom sighed. They were toxic as hell. Fought all the time. Broke up. Got back together, broke up again. But when she met you, she swore she was over all that. She said you were the best thing that ever happened to her. I should have felt reassured by that. But all I felt was sick. Jessica and Ryan had history, and I had never been told. When I walked back inside, Jessica was in the kitchen, making coffee. Like nothing had happened. Like she wasn't keeping huge secrets from me. I stood there, just staring at her. What else hadn't she told me? And more importantly, was she ever really over Ryan? I could barely think straight. Jessica had dated Ryan for years, and she never told me. I sat at the kitchen table, gripping my coffee mug so tight I thought it might crack. Across from me, Jessica scrolled through her phone, completely oblivious to the storm raging inside me. I wanted to ask her, why didn't you tell me? I wanted to throw it in her face. Did you really think I'd never find out? I wanted to make her squirm, but I didn't. Not yet, because now, I had a bigger question. If the money wasn't from her parents, then where the hell did it come from? I needed proof. Before I confronted her. Before I gave her the chance to spin another lie. I needed proof. So I did what any sane, reasonable husband would do. I went digging. That afternoon, when Jessica left to run errands, something she'd been doing a lot lately, I went straight to her laptop. I wasn't the type to snoop, but at this point, I had no reason to trust her. First, I checked her emails. Nothing. Then her bank account. Nothing weird there either. And then, I found it. A second email account. One I had never seen before. I clicked it open, my heart pounding. And there it was. An email. From Ryan. Ryan Carter. Subject, the money. Jess, I already gave you what I could. I can't keep pulling cash like this. I told you I'll do my part, but I need you to be smart. Ethan can't find out. If Emily sees anything suspicious, she'll start asking questions too. Ryan. I sat back in my chair, my pulse hammering. Ryan gave her the money. For what? What the hell were they hiding? Before I could even process what I had just read, my phone rang. Emily. Now, Emily and I were friendly, but she never called me directly. Something was wrong. I picked up. Hey, everything all right? She was crying. It's Ryan, she choked out. He got into an accident. By the time I got to the hospital, Emily was already there. Pacing. Waiting. According to the doctors, Ryan had been in his car alone when he lost control and smashed into a guardrail. No other drivers involved. Just him. A concussion. Bruised ribs. A broken wrist. He'd survive. But here's the thing. According to Emily, he had been on his phone right before the crash. Texting. And now I had to wonder, was he texting Jessica? Had they been arguing about the money? Did he lose control? Because of her? I didn't have the answers yet, but I was damn sure going to find out. Ryan was in the hospital. Jessica had been hiding money from me, and now I knew for a fact that she and Ryan had history. The puzzle pieces were falling into place, but I still didn't know why. Why had Ryan been giving her money? Why had she lied to me about it? And most importantly, what the hell were they hiding? I wasn't leaving the hospital without answers. Emily and I sat outside Ryan's hospital room while the doctors checked him over. She was still shaken, rubbing her arms like she was freezing. I don't get it, she whispered, staring at the floor. He barely even touches his phone while driving. Why today? I had my suspicions, and I needed to prove them. Cleared my throat. Emily, have you ever had a reason to doubt Ryan? She frowned. What do you mean? I hesitated. Like, has he ever done anything shady? Been weird about money? She sighed. Honestly? Lately, yeah. A few weeks ago, I noticed some ATM withdrawals. Hundreds of dollars. Always in cash. He never told me why. She shook her head. I should have pressed him harder. That was all I needed to hear. Ryan had been pulling out money and giving it to Jessica. For what? Emily didn't know, but maybe Jessica did. Jessica had arrived at the hospital a few minutes earlier, but had stepped outside to take a call. I followed. I found her in the parking lot, pacing, her phone pressed to her ear. The second she saw me, she went pale, but she didn't hang up. You need to be careful, she was saying. We can't talk about this right now. I walked right up to her. Who are you talking to? She spun around, furious. Jesus, Ethan. You scared me. I didn't stop. I grabbed her phone before she could react. Call ended. No name. Just a number. I held it up. Ryan. She crossed her arms. That's none of your business. Wrong answer. I stepped closer. Lowered my voice. You told me the money was from your parents, I said. That was a lie. Jessica's jaw tightened. You told me Ryan was just a friend. That was a lie too. She opened her mouth to argue, but I cut her off. I know you two used to date. That got her. Her face twitched. Not shock. Not even guilt. Just annoyance. Like she was irritated I had figured it out. You should have told me, I said, my voice dangerously low. She exhaled sharply. Ethan, this isn't what you think. Then what the hell is it, Jess? I snapped. Because from where I'm standing, my wife has been sneaking around with my best friend, taking his money, lying to me, and you need to drop this. I froze. I blinked. What? Jessica stepped closer, lowered her voice. I'm telling you right now, Ethan, let it go. This isn't something you want to dig into. My heart pounded. She wasn't denying it. She wasn't apologizing. She was warning me. And that was the moment I realized, whatever they were hiding, it was bigger than I thought. I didn't drop it. How could I? Jessica had warned me. Like this was some kind of movie where the guy finds out too much and gets himself killed. Like I was just supposed to shut up and accept that my wife and my best friend had a shared secret, and I wasn't allowed to know what it was. No, that wasn't going to happen. And I was about to learn just how deep this betrayal went. Emily was still in the waiting room when I walked back in. She was pacing again, chewing on her lip, arms crossed tight around herself. She stopped when she saw me. Where's Jessica? I sat down with a sigh. Outside. Hiding something. Emily frowned. She hesitated, then sat next to me. I need to ask you something, I said, looking her straight in the eyes. She swallowed hard. Okay. Has Ryan ever cheated on you before? Her entire face changed. It was quick, just a flicker of something. But I saw it. I leaned forward. Emily. Has he? She inhaled shakily. I don't know. I've never caught him, but... She cut herself off. But what? Emily exhaled, shaking her head. There was this one time, about a year ago, I found messages on his phone, deleted ones. He said it was just some old texts from a coworker. But I didn't believe him. I sat back. A year ago, around the same time Jessica started acting weird. This wasn't a new thing. This had been going on for at least a year. And if Emily hadn't caught those texts, how long would it have continued? Forever? I was about to say something else when Emily's phone buzzed. She pulled it out and went pale. Her hands shook as she read whatever message had just come in. Emily? I asked. She looked up at me, eyes wide with horror. Then, without a word, she shoved her phone into my hand. I looked down. It was a picture of Jessica and Ryan. But not just any picture. It was from years ago, before I met Jessica, before Emily married Ryan. They were standing outside a clinic, a paternity clinic. My heart stopped. Below the picture, a text message. You deserved to know the truth.
No sender.
Just a random number. I stared at the screen. Paternity clinic. Ryan had taken a paternity test with Jessica, which meant this wasn't the first time she had lied about who the father of a baby was. Emily let out a shaky breath, gripping her head. Oh my God! I looked at her. She was putting it together too. Ryan and Jessica had a history of this. This wasn't just an affair. This was a pattern. And I had no idea how deep it went. Couldn't breathe. The picture on Emily's phone. The paternity clinic. The hidden past. The proof that Jessica and Ryan had done this before. It was like someone had punched me in the gut. I looked up at Emily. She was shaking, her fingers gripping the phone so tight her knuckles were white. They've done this before, she whispered. I swallowed hard. Yeah. We didn't have to say it out loud. We were both thinking it. If they had covered up a pregnancy in the past, then what were the chances they were doing it again? The baby that I had been killing myself working for. The baby I had been dreaming about raising. The baby that might not even be mine. I felt like I was going to be sick. I stood up too fast, my head spinning. I have to talk to her. Emily grabbed my wrist. Ethan, wait. If you go in there right now, she'll just lie to you. You need proof. I clenched my jaw. She was right. Jessica was too good at twisting things. Too good at making me feel like I was crazy. But I was done playing dumb. I turned to Emily. You still have access to Ryan's stuff, right? She hesitated. What do you mean? I mean his emails, his phone, his accounts, anything that could tell us the truth. She blinked, then nodded slowly. Yeah, I know his passwords. I exhaled. Then let's find out exactly what they've been hiding. We left the hospital. Drove straight to Emily and Ryan's house. She let us in. We sat on the couch, her laptop open in front of us. Emily whispered, fingers flying across the keyboard. If Ryan took a paternity test with Jessica before, there has to be a record somewhere. She logged into his email. Thousands of unread messages. Ryan was one of those people who never deleted anything. Try searching for paternity test, I said. Emily nodded. Typed it in. A second later, my blood ran ice cold. There it was. An email. From 6 years ago. Subject. Paternity test results, confidential. Emily and I looked at each other. Neither of us moved. Finally, she clicked on it. Patient. Jessica Carter, formerly Jessica Lane. Alleged father Ryan Carter. Results. 99.9% probability of paternity. My stomach dropped. Jessica had a child. Ryan was the father. And neither of us had ever known. I turned to Emily. Where the hell is this kid? She covered her mouth with her hands. Oh my God. What? She looked at me, tears in her eyes. Ryan told me once, back in college, he got a girl pregnant. But they weren't ready. She gave the baby up for adoption. I stared at her. And that girl was Jessica. She nodded. It hit me like a truck. Jessica had hidden an entire pregnancy before. And now, she was pregnant again. And I had no idea if this baby was mine. I stood up, my heart pounding in my ears. I wasn't waiting anymore. I was going to get the truth out of her. Tonight. By the time I got home, my hands were shaking. Jessica was in the kitchen, casually scrolling through her phone. Like she hadn't spent the past year lying to my face. Like she hadn't kept an entire child a secret from me. I stood there, just watching her. She didn't even look up. "Where were you?" she asked, still focused on her screen. Something inside me snapped. "You ever gonna tell me about the baby, Jess?" Her fingers stopped moving. Slowly, she looked up at me, her face perfectly blank. "Excuse me?" I took a step closer. "The baby you had with Ryan. The one you gave up for adoption." Her expression didn't change, but I saw it. That flicker of panic in her eyes. For the first time since this whole thing started, I had her cornered. Jessica took a deep breath, set her phone down, folded her arms. "Who told you that?" I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. Not the response of someone who's innocent. She rolled her eyes, rolled her goddamn eyes. "You're making this into something it's not," she said coolly. "That was a long time ago, Ethan. It has nothing to do with us." I took another step forward, lowered my voice. "Except that it does. Because now you're pregnant again. And I have to ask myself, are you doing the same thing to me that you did to Ryan?" She froze. For the first time, I saw real fear in her expression. Bingo. I shook my head, laughed bitterly. "Jesus Christ. Tell me the truth, Jessica. Is this baby even mine?" Silence. That was all the answer I needed. I exhaled sharply. "I want a DNA test." She scoffed. "That's ridiculous." "No, Jess," I said, my voice deadly calm. "What's ridiculous is that I have to ask." She folded her arms, narrowed her eyes. "I'm not taking a test just because you're insecure." I let out another sharp laugh. "Insecure? That's what we're going with." I stepped closer, staring her down. "You were with Ryan while we were married, weren't you?" She didn't say anything, didn't deny it, just stared at me, expression unreadable. I leaned in. "Say it." "Nothing." She wouldn't even give me that. I clenched my jaw. "Fine. If you don't take the test, I'm gone. And I'll tell everyone exactly why." Jessica smirked. And that was when I realized something. She wasn't scared of losing me. She had never been scared of losing me, because I had never really mattered to her. But I wasn't playing her game anymore. I turned around and walked out. The next day, I scheduled a paternity test. And when the results came back, I wasn't the father. I stared at the paper in my hands. Probability of paternity, 0%. I felt numb. I had spent months working myself to the bone, planning for a future that was never mine. I had painted the nursery, built the crib, imagined late nights rocking my child back to sleep. Except, that child wasn't mine. And Jessica had known the whole time. She let me believe it. She let me dream about it. And she never once cared. I drove home in silence. My mind wasn't even racing anymore. I wasn't angry. I was just done. When I walked through the door, Jessica was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, like nothing had changed, like she hadn't just ruined my life. She looked up, raised an eyebrow. "What's with the face?" I clenched my jaw, tossed the test results onto the coffee table. Her eyes flicked down. She read it. Then she smiled.
"No shock. No guilt."
Just that damn smirk. "I told you not to dig," she said, crossing her arms. "But you just couldn't let it go." My fingers curled into fists. "So that's it? That's all you have to say?" Jessica shrugged. "You're acting like this is some huge betrayal." I laughed. A dry, bitter sound. "It's not." She rolled her eyes. "Ethan, it's just a baby. You would have been a great dad regardless."
I stared at her.
Stunned. She really believed that. She really thought that I would just stay. That I would raise another man's child like nothing happened. Like I wasn't completely shattered inside. Something inside me clicked. I wasn't going to fight anymore. I wasn't going to beg for explanations. I was going to walk away. I turned toward the stairs. I'm packing my stuff. Jessica's smirk faltered. Ethan. I ignored her. Ethan, she repeated, louder this time. Don't be stupid. I stopped halfway up the stairs. Slowly, I turned to face her. Stupid? I asked, my voice eerily calm. You lied to me. You let me think this baby was mine for almost a year. You took my best friend's money to keep it a secret. And you want to call me stupid? Her jaw clenched. Fine. Leave. You'll regret it. I exhaled sharply. No, I said. You will. And with that, I walked upstairs and started packing. I never looked back. That night I crashed at a cheap motel. It was supposed to be temporary, just a place to clear my head. But then, my phone rang. Emily. I almost didn't answer. I wasn't in the mood to talk. But something told me, pick up. I did. She exhaled on the other end. So, I guess you know. Yeah. My voice was hollow. I know. A pause. Then, you want to grab a drink? I hesitated. For half a second. Then I grabbed my keys. Yeah. I said. Ido. Sitting across from Emily at the bar, I realized something. For the first time in months, hell, maybe even years, I wasn't walking on eggshells. I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. I wasn't trying to decode some hidden lie buried in a conversation. I was just there, existing. And for the first time, I didn't feel alone. Emily sipped her drink, staring at the ice swirling in the glass. So, she really let you think the baby was yours the whole time? I nodded, tapping my fingers against the counter. Yep. Emily let out a bitter laugh. You know what the worst part is? I raised an eyebrow. She shook her head. She didn't even look guilty about it, did she? I huffed a dry laugh. Nope. Emily sighed. Ryan was the same way. When I confronted him, he didn't even try to deny it. Just looked at me like I was inconveniencing him by finding out. She leaned back. I wasted years on that man. And for what? I thought about all the nights I spent killing myself trying to be a good husband. All the days I'd gone to work early and come home late, just so Jessica wouldn't have to stress about money. All the times I'd looked at her and thought, God, I'm lucky. And the entire time, she had been screwing me over. Literally. Emily and I sat in silence for a while. Not an awkward silence. Just a comfortable one. Like two people who had both been hit by the same car and were just waiting for the ambulance. Finally, Emily turned to me with a small smile. You know what? Screw them. I smirked. Agreed. She lifted her glass. To the dumbass we married, and the even dumber people they turned out to be. I clinked my glass against hers. And to not being dumbass anymore. We both took a drink. For the first time since my world fell apart, I actually felt good. One drink turned into two. Then three. Then laughter. Then something else. We didn't talk about Ryan or Jessica anymore. We talked about us. About old memories. About dumb movies. About all the times we'd been in the same room for years, but never really seen each other. Emily looked at me, tilting her head slightly. You ever wonder how different things would have been if we had met before them? I swallowed, my pulse kicking up. Yeah, I admitted. I do. She held my gaze. Me too. Silence stretched between us. Then she smirked. You want to make them really mad? I chuckled. You suggesting what I think you're suggesting? She shrugged. Why not? For the first time in months. I didn't hesitate. I leaned in. Let's do it. Jessica and Ryan destroyed our lives. But in the end, they did us a favor. Because when they burned everything to the ground, Emily and I built something better.